Welcome to Let's Talk Period, brought to you by Red Diamond Sisters. We're here to help you turn your cycle into strength with real talk, expert tips, and stories that remind you your period isn't a problem, your period is your power.
Welcome to Let's Talk Period. Today, we welcome Vanessa Nixon, a really special guest who has great information about your health and wellness because she is a health and wellness practitioner. Her credentials are very impressive. She holds a doctorate in traditional naturopathy, a master's in herbal medicine. She's also a professional Middle Eastern dance instructor and performer because Vanessa likes to bring movement into her practices to help women feel better about their bodies and to help them go into full wellness. So today, Vanessa and I will discuss menstruation and how we can ease menstrual discomfort using herbs and dance. So welcome, Vanessa. I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I'm really honored to be here with you today.
Oh my goodness, I've been looking so forward to this interview for quite some time because I've known you for 3 years or more, I think 4 years, and I know that you've helped thousands of women with your remedies, your practices, your treatments to help them move through all kinds of feminine issues. So I'm really, really happy to have you here today. So could you tell us, how did you even get started? How did holistic medicine become part of your world, your profession?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That's a great question. And I find my story is similar to a lot of other natural healers in that I healed myself. And through that experience, that's what brought me to really being passionate about wellness and health and natural medicine. When I was a teenager, I was chronically ill. For about a total of 7 years, I suffered from chronic bronchitis, and I was ill more of the time than I was well. And over the course of these 7 years, I had tried so many different conventional treatments. I was placed on antibiotics course after course, and then for a while just consistently, like daily antibiotics for over a period of 2 years. I was given codeine cough syrups. I was given all kinds of medication. And so I think I was maybe about 14 or 15 when I first started noticing this pattern. And so in my early 20s then, it had gotten to the point where, as you can imagine, having been on antibiotics so often, it had just decimated my immune system. And so I was more and more vulnerable to sicknesses and illnesses. And one day, a friend asked me a question that nobody had ever asked me before in all of that time. After my friend had noticed that I was taking these antibiotics every day and asked me why, and I told the story. And then they said, well, is it helping? Just that simple question was actually the turning point for me because nobody had ever asked me if it was helping. And I had just followed those protocols because I thought that's what you did. You just listened to your doctor, you did what they told you, and you didn't ask questions. I had never asked myself that question before. And so that really just stopped me in my tracks. And when I thought about it, I realized it wasn't helping, and it actually seemed to be getting worse over the years. And then that same friend said, well, when I get sick, I go to see an herbalist. And I can introduce you if you'd like. And so sure enough, within like a week or two, I was sick again. And I asked about the herbalist, and I went, and she gave me an herbal respiratory formula. And what had usually previously taken me about 8 weeks to recover from these bouts, it took 2 weeks this time taking the herbs, and that had never happened before. And it was just like my mind expanded. It was like suddenly there was a whole new world open to me. And not only was it another option that I had never known about, but it seemed to be so much better for me than the option that I had been utilizing all those years. And so as I continued to take these herbs and also to start learning more about herbs and then about other ways of natural living through nutrition and other modalities, I realized that those bouts of bronchitis became less severe, they became more infrequent, and over a number of years, I had completely healed myself, and I haven't had a bout of bronchitis now in 20, 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really just that experience of empowerment, of understanding that there were so many other things out there that I had not been exposed to, and I have had the choice. You know, I was at choice as to how to claim ownership of my own health and lead myself down my chosen path to health. And that was the first really empowering experience of my life.
Goodness. You know, and having the natural remedies, it really is empowering. You know, not paying attention to these doctors when their whole thing is about prescriptions and not really knowing your body, but knowing your own body and how to heal it. What a fabulous, wonderful thing to discover.
Exactly. And at a young age, I think that's really important for young women to understand, is that
Yes.
you know your body better than anybody else. And the messages that your body sends you are really important to listen to. And we so often get the conditioning from society that people of authority know better than we do, and we just need to kind of ignore, you know, our own intuition and just do what we're told. And so having that experience at a relatively young age really set the tone for the rest of my life, and it really changed the trajectory not only of my life but of my future career.
Oh, that's fantastic. I remember a few years ago, you would offer these incredible remedies. You would offer these classes and create a remedy in your kitchen. I believe one was like an elderberry remedy and some other thing. And it was just wonderful. So it's like it is a practice that you can do on your own, you know, and most of the ingredients too are basically safe, right? Like an elderberry, you can get whatever you need, berries in the Whole Food store.
That's a great point to bring up, is safety, because compared to pharmaceutical medication, herbs are incredibly safe. People have been using herbal medicine for more than 5,000 years. We have 5,000 years of actual documented usage and anecdotal evidence and documentation of how herbs have been used in various different traditions around the world. But before that even, you know, human beings from really the beginning of our existence have been using herbs as medicine. That's how we healed ourselves. That's how we survived. That's how we got here. And so comparatively with, you know, what most people view as conventional medicine, which is only a little over 100 years old, you know, not only do we have so much more data and research and anecdotal evidence on the safety and efficacy of herbs, but we just don't have that with modern medicine. It's just in its infancy. And it's sometimes mind-blowing to me to think about how much trust we put in modern medicine when there's so little research, there's so little history behind it, when we have so much more history behind some of these other natural modalities. However, when it comes to safety, I do want to say that there is a misconception that because herbs are natural, that they're all safe for all people at any time. And that's not true. And so I really want to encourage people, if they're interested in herbal medicine, to educate themselves, because some plants are poisonous and we need to know the difference. Some plants are food and you can eat them every day and there's going to be no problem. But, we need to educate ourselves about the risks that are out there, because everything has a risk. But comparatively, yes, it is incredibly safe.
Let's talk a little bit about the herbal remedies, how and menstrual discomfort or menstrual health. And do you have any insights for us on that?
I do. So when women come to see me, it's often for menopause, just because that's kind of how my practice has evolved. But I find a very distinct similarity between adolescence or puberty and menopause, because our bodies are actually going through a very similar transition with our hormones. And so some of the same symptoms that we experienced through puberty, we often will experience some of the same things in perimenopause. And so I often do get women coming to me for those similar things, no matter which kind of end of the spectrum they're on. And so I generally, after we go through looking at their diet and making some changes there, we look to herbal remedies. And I almost always first look to liver herbs that are going to support the liver, because the liver is kind of like the detox system of the body. And everything that comes into the body eventually needs to get filtered through the liver. And when you are either in adolescence or in perimenopause and menopause, there are a lot of hormones filtering through your body. And the liver not only filters all the food and everything you consume, but it also metabolizes all your hormones. And then when you're stressed, on top of it, you've got a lot of stress hormones, you've got a lot of cortisol that's being produced. And so the liver ends up getting kind of bogged down and overloaded. And so before you can really do anything else, you have to make sure your liver is functioning properly and it's getting the support that it needs so that it can do the detoxing. And you need to then look at the rest of the digestive system and make sure that it's working properly, because you could eat the best diet in the world, but if your digestive system can't assimilate those nutrients, then it doesn't do you any good. So that's the first place to look, is the digestive system, and specifically the part of the digestive system that is the liver. And so I look to herbs like dandelion and burdock and nettle, which are all food herbs. These are herbs that you can be taking every day, whether it's in a tincture or a tea, but they are going to help reduce the load and the stress on the liver and actually strengthen it. It will actually help to rebuild the liver, and so that it is doing its job more efficiently. And once it's doing that, then things are going to flow better. Things are going to start to flow, and those things that the liver detox are going to be able to be excreted more efficiently. And so a lot of times, any kind of inflammation that you might have been experiencing, which could manifest as headache, or it could be joint pain, or it could be any other kind of pain in the body, that oftentimes starts to dissipate just by adding some liver herbs into the diet. And then I'm going to probably look at herbs that are really nutrient dense, especially herbs that have a lot of mineral content. Things like alfalfa and oat straw and red raspberry leaf and seaweed, and your nettle again. Your nettle and your dandelion and burdock on, the taproot type herbs like dandelion and burdock. They have these long taproots, and they take up nutrients from the soil, and then when you consume those, then you have all those minerals. So, really making sure that you have a lot of nutrients coming in, a lot of minerals coming into your body to help rebuild the systems that may have been weakened a little bit. And then after that, I would look at if there needs to be any hormone balancing, and then we might need some specific herbs to help kind of just regulate and create some harmony in the hormonal system. But again, sometimes we don't even need to go there because the liver herbs and the mineral-rich herbs have already helped to balance things out. And then for long-term, I like to use adaptogens. And adaptogens are a class of herbs that help your body adapt to stress. And as we've already been talking about, we have a lot of stress. All of us live with stress. And so adaptogens can help your body to be more efficient in the way that your endocrine system handles the stress that comes in. And so we don't get those cortisol spikes that end up dysregulating all the other hormones. So something like eleuthero or rhodiola or ashwagandha. These are all herbs that, depending on the unique constitution of the person, we might look at.
These herbs, I'm familiar with some of them. I know, like dandelion, I see that fresh in the produce section, and then I also see it as a capsule. And then I see tinctures and some of the, like the ashwagandha, I've only seen that as a nutritional supplement. I don't know what ashwagandha herb looks like. So how do you recommend that we look? Well, first of all, I know that ideally a person would go to an herbalist to get the right prescription in the first place. But let's say it's something simple like dandelion, because I feel like that's safe and tasty, because I do like dandelion. Do you recommend people just get it fresh from the produce section, or go to your herbal supplement section? What do you say about that?
That's a great question. And what I love about herbs is that they're so accessible. Like anywhere that anybody lives in the world, you have access to some kind of herbal medicine, whether it's in the spice aisle of your grocery store or, even in the produce section, or whether it's in your backyard or growing on your windowsill. But like everybody can access some kind of herbal medicine. So in terms of what form to take, that really depends on the person, because I might say, okay, if you are dealing with menstrual cramps, a tea is going to be really helpful because you're going to actually feel the warmth of the tea going through your digestive system, and that's going to help warm and move things and loosen up any stagnation. But if you're not a person that is going to take a tea regularly, it's not going to help you. It's just going to sit on your shelf. And if I say, well, I'd like to do a tincture, if you're a person that cannot stand the taste of tinctures, you're not going to take it. And so there are many different ways that we can take herbs. And I love things like dandelion and burdock because you can find dandelion leaf in a lot of grocery stores. You can also find it in your backyard. And so if you know that your yard hasn't been treated with chemicals, then you can feel safe. First of all, making sure you have proper identification of the plant, because there are some herbs that look like dandelion that are not dandelion. But knowing that you have the right plant, you can, just cultivate it in your backyard. Burdock is often found in Asian grocery stores, and it's called gobo, and they eat it just like you would eat carrots. And it's
goodness.
the root of the burdock plant. And so that's something that if you have an Asian grocery store around you, you will almost always have access to burdock roots called gobo. And then things like ginger and cinnamon are really good for warming and moving and dispersing any kind of stagnant energy, which is often what's happening during cramping and PMS type symptoms. And so, combining the food of dandelion leaf and burdock root, gobo, and then, making sure you have ginger in your daily meals, or you make a cup of ginger tea, which is really easy. You just slice up some fresh ginger and put it in a cup and, pour hot water over it and let it steep for 15 or 20 minutes. And then you've got a strong cup of ginger tea that's really going to help to disperse all of the inflammation and the spasmodic nature of the cramps. Add a little cinnamon to it. So, right there, just about anybody has access to those kinds of everyday herbs that can be super beneficial, not only in the moment, but also for helping to strengthen your body long term so that you can lessen those instances and lessen the severity of future instances of cramping or other PMS symptoms.
Yes, that is something that I was also going to ask you, which you pretty much answered. So these herbs can be used for immediate use and then long term to just help a lifestyle. It's basically a lifestyle enhancement to help a woman or a girl feel good all month long, every single day, period, no period. And then when has her period, it's as easy as can be. So, oh my God, that's fantastic. This is really, really wonderful.
It really is lifestyle medicine. That's what it is. And it just takes being willing to make some shifts in your lifestyle, to add in these pieces of movement, of stress reduction and eating better, and then, adding these few different types of herbal medicine into your daily routine. And the ones that I talked about are foods, so they're safe to use every day. There are some other herbs that, like cramp bark, that are really helpful for cramping, but that's not something that you would want to take every day. And so you want to, again, educate yourself on which herbs are tonic, food-like herbs that you can use every day, and which ones you would only want to use acutely when you are having a symptom.
Incredible. That's so beautiful. So, give us a little tiny bit of insight about your dance as part of your healing modalities. How did you get involved in that?
When I was about 11 years old, we lived in a very small town. I grew up in a small town on the Oregon coast. And one day we were out and I saw this flyer for a belly dance class. And it just fascinated me. There was something about it, like I really, really wanted to take those classes. But I was only 11 years old, and I begged my mother to call the instructor and see if I could take the classes. And the instructor told her, well, I don't generally teach children, but if you can get together a group of girls around her age, then, I would consider doing a special class for them. And so I was so excited, and I asked all my friends and all the people that I knew around my age and nobody was interested.
Oh, no.
Nobody wanted to learn belly dance, and they just gave me these weird looks,
Oh.
and I was so disappointed. And
Mhm.
then when I was in my very early 20s, I moved to a much larger town, a small city, and I noticed that through the Parks and Recreation department, they offered belly dance classes. And it just it triggered that memory. And I just had that same strong desire, like, yes, 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 this is what I want. And so I signed up for the class, and it was like an 8-week session. And then I signed up for another one and another one. And within 6 months, the instructor had asked me to join her professional troupe.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I danced on 2 different professional troupes for a total of, I don't know, maybe about 8 years throughout my 20s. But that was the second, I guess, most empowering experience that I had ever been through in that period of my life, because I was extremely shy, like painfully shy. But I loved dance. That was a way that I felt really was natural for me to express myself. I had just become so much more confident in myself and in showing up, in my life and in all the spaces that I went to in my life with so much more confidence and a sense of self. I had definitely noticed changes physically in my body, even though I had always been a dancer. Like, this was something that was a little bit more challenging for me as a dancer. And I noticed how much stronger my body was. And I also noticed that I was able to be much more in touch with my body. And I think that's where the confidence came from. I was more in touch with my own inner wisdom and my own intuition. And that led me to research more and more about where belly dance came from. And it actually was a cultural practice that came from the Middle East, but it was all about women's empowerment. This dance was a dance that was only performed by women, only for other women in the village. And they would get together in their little community events, and the older women would teach these movements to the younger girls and teenagers, and they would dance with each other and for each other as a celebration of the story of womanhood. And the actual choreography of belly dance tells the story of womanhood. The first part is like the maiden phase and the mother phase and the crone phase. And so the whole dance is a representation of the life and joy of being a woman. And so I find it to, again, be one of the most powerful things that a woman can do for herself. The movements themselves were designed to help a woman's body navigate all of these transitions she goes through, from adolescence through motherhood, through menopause. So you're strengthening your body so that you can live out your story in a healthier, stronger way.
That is fantastic, Vanessa. Oh my God. And then you include that in your prescriptions, let's say, with some of your patients or your clients.
Absolutely. With my clients, I really encourage them, not specifically if belly dance is something that doesn't speak to them, but to find a form of movement that is not about competition. It's not about comparing yourself to somebody else. A form of movement that is nurturing and strengthening to your body and can help you to hear those messages more clearly that your body sends you. And I personally just find, that belly dance, because of the history and because of the specific movements that we practice, is one form of movement that does all of those things. And we know that dance also stimulates the brain, learning new movements, learning new sequences of movements, new combinations. And particularly with belly dance, there are so many movements that use different sides of the body in alternate ways. And so you're helping, the right and the left side of your brain to work together. And so you're not just getting physical movement, physical exercise, but you're moving your body in ways that are helping to strengthen your pelvic floor and open your heart space, and you're doing all of these brain exercises at the same time, and you're having fun, and you're doing it in a community of women. So it's just got all of the things,
When it comes into a young woman or any woman who has cramps or PMS, we'll just start with the belly dancing. Does that help alleviate cramps, or how does that benefit the body?
Absolutely, yes. I remember when I was first doing belly dance, and I would be at that time of the month where I was feeling a little crampy and thinking, oh, I don't want to go to practice tonight, and I would go, and I would be so surprised that it totally would relieve my cramps. And I know now that it was because those movements, which are, as I mentioned, many of them focused on the pelvic floor, but also the abdominal muscles and the uterine muscles. You are strengthening and toning those muscles, and you're also providing a lot of stress relief to your body. And that's one of the reasons that we have so much cramping, is because our body's in a state of stress, particularly with our lifestyle these days. Most of us are living in chronic stress, and we don't even realize it. But our body is holding all of that. And so especially with young women, as they're navigating these changes in their bodies through puberty and adolescence and young adulthood, and then maybe into motherhood, pregnancy and motherhood, their body is doing so much. There are so many changes and shifts that our bodies are experiencing every single day. We don't just have a monthly cycle. We have our shifts that happen throughout our bodies throughout every single day, every single week, every month. We have seasonal cycles, we have yearly cycles, we have lifetime, cycles throughout our lives. And so as women, we are constantly changing. Our bodies are never the same. And when you add all of the stress of modern life and all the things we have to navigate on top of that, our body has to hold all of those things too while it's navigating all these changes. And so that can be held in the uterine tissue, in the pelvic area. And so using movement, especially movement that really helps to tone those particular muscles and ligaments and joints that are, in the pelvic area, can really help to lessen the intensity and also the frequency. Over time, as you practice these movements, many women can notice that they have fewer and fewer incidences of PMS or cramping, whereas some other movements don't do that. Especially more intense, competitive type of, athletics just don't have that same targeted result that something like belly dance or other forms of gentle dance or Tai Chi or yoga can have.
Just that secret, that one secret, because I think about the women today, women in general, like you and me and our ages, but I think about the young girls today. It's the stress level for them is probably 10 times what it was for me, probably 5 times what it was for you because you're younger than me. And I mean, everything that they have to deal with. And I constantly see on social media and everywhere the women are in pain. I keep
Yeah.
seeing everywhere how girls are doubling over and they talk about how severe their cramps are. And I don't recall that when I was growing up. I mean, maybe we just didn't talk about it. We definitely did not have social media. But we didn't maybe we didn't talk about it even in TV shows. But I don't remember so much conversation among my classmates or the girlfriends. And I'm just now thinking maybe it's the stress that these young women are facing now that we just didn't have back in my day, talk about the old days. But
Right.
so having dance as a treatment, that
That
would be great.
that is, I think, one really important piece. And I do agree. I think that there is more stress. I think that we, especially as women, have always lived with a certain amount of stress in, at least in Western modern society. But I do think that we have different kinds of stresses today than we did when I was young, when you were young. Um, and so movement can be a really important piece, not only in healing some of the symptoms, but in stress reduction in general. It's a tool, it's a technique that we can use to reduce stress. And then that in turn is going to reduce symptoms. But other things that are also really important are, I think, things that we have often heard, but nutrition. Like,
Hmm.
I know for me, I did not grow up understanding what healthy nutrition was. I had no clue how to eat for health. And I think a lot of young girls are in the same position, especially when you're not necessarily in control of your own food. If you're living, parents who buy the food for the house, or if you're just out on your own for the first time and, you don't know what kinds of things to stock your kitchen and your refrigerator with. But that is probably one of the most important things for having a healthy menstrual cycle, is to make sure that you understand that the foods that you eat are going to result in how your organs function. So if you are eating junk, then that's the building blocks that your body has to use to continue to rebuild itself and grow. And it's not going to. It's like junk in, junk out, garbage in, garbage out. That saying, that's what happens to your body. And so if you're looking to have a healthy menstrual cycle, then you really need to start with healthy food every day as much as possible. And that doesn't mean that you can't ever eat your favorite foods anymore, but there is a balance and a moderation that our bodies need. We need nutrients. And if we don't have those nutrients, our body's going to keep asking for more. And a lot of times when I deal with clients who want to lose weight, or they're just hungry all the time and they don't know how to fight these cravings, it's because their body's not getting the nutrients. It may be getting enough volume, but it's not getting nutrients. So no matter how much they eat of these very unhealthy foods, low nutrient foods, they don't ever feel satiated. They don't ever feel fulfilled. And so I find that when women start shifting their diet to very nutrient-dense foods on a regular basis, suddenly your body starts feeling safe.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to hold on so tightly to things. And then they find that they actually eat a lot less because they don't have those cravings anymore, because their body's actually understanding that, oh, I'm going to get these nutrients every day. It's coming in. It's been coming in now for a while. I don't have to grab on and hold on to every single thing that comes into my body. I can actually start to balance out. And that's when you see hormones start to balance. that have been erratic. That's when you start to see inflammation disappearing. That's when you start to see excess weight kind of just naturally shedding, is when the body feels safe. When you have those stress release techniques that work for you, and when you have a really healthy diet and your body's now feeling safe, and then when you add on, herbal remedies or homeopathic remedies or other lifestyle changes that help to reduce stress and make your body feel safe, that's when we get to the place of true healing.
This is a medicine. This is medicine. You are an expert. And especially if we have girls or women who are suffering, and there are a lot of, like I said earlier, there are a lot of people who are suffering and they don't have to, and there's hope, and there's probably a lot of hopelessness out there. I'd love to send people your way. Give us a little bit of information about that.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share that. So I do offer a short, free 20-minute, 30-minute at the most consult for people who want to know a little bit more about how I work, and that helps me to get to know what's going on with them and see if it's a good fit to work together. And I do work virtually as well as in person here in Washington State, where I am. And I have a website, herbsofgracehealingarts.com, and there are a couple of free gifts on that website. Most of them are pertaining specifically to the menopausal phase of life, but I am absolutely would be delighted to talk to anybody who is resonating with this kind of lifestyle medicine shift that they want to make in their life. And so my email is vanessa@herbsofgrace.com. Again, the website is herbsofgracehealingarts.com. So either of those two ways, you'll be able to get in touch with me, and we could see if it's a good fit to work together. My virtual belly dance membership, there's information about that on the website, as well as how I work with women through all of these other natural modalities.
I can't tell you how, grateful I am, Vanessa, that you have joined us today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was just a delightful conversation. These are the things I love to talk about and I'm so passionate about. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
My pleasure. And Red Diamond Sisters, thank you so much for joining us for Let's Talk Period. We will see you next time.